Hi, this is Kerry R. Tech with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Bitcoin analysis for the week of Monday, February 2nd, 2026. I always start with the big picture. This chart goes back back to 26. Yes, 16, sorry. So 10 years. Anyway, so if you've been following the series, you know that this has been a significant channel. It is a 5-6 year structure. We did close above it over a year ago. We collapsed back to it during the early Trump administration with the tariff talks. We never closed back below it. We rallied up to this full wave count, A minus B. That is the 21 high minus the 22 low, and you flip that on its head, an exhaustion point for most markets, especially long term. And then we fell back to the channel top. We also, and actually more significant, is the fact that we fell back to a newly formed rising channel bottom that is based in part on the highs that were put out in D's 24 and again in July 25. And this held nicely. If you recall, back in November, we rallied off of it very modestly. We never had a buy signal to the upside. That would have come, as a reminder, with the settlement above the high of the low. And then we're now below that low. So this is no longer an important element, but that's what we were looking for. A settlement above this 95,945 would have been our go with buy signal after having tested long-term support. Wasn't to be. What did occur was last week, and this bar right here, we are already in that week. This is like a 24-hour market, and we're 24 hours into it. Continued losses. We settled last week in a significant sell signal. We closed clearly below this 86,505 3-year channel bottom. This has set up a longer-term bearish continuation. I will get to that in a moment. I will mention that interestingly enough, the U.S. dollar also posted a significant sell signal last week. So the two are kind of in lockstep in terms of their behavior. This is a much longer term structure. This is the U.S. dollar index, by the way, and this goes back, here we are back in 86. So this is 40 years rather than 10 years. And this channel bottom goes back to March of 2008. And, it had been holding. We'd slipped through it, but we'd never closed below it by a 1% margin, which is a margin that I like to use for longer-term line studies. We did so last week. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to spend much time on this. The U.S. dollar is also in a significant sell signal. This is a monthly chart. Below 98.35, I'm expecting the upper 80s in the U.S. dollar index. This is another 10% collapse in the value of the U.S. dollar. We did that actually from January to roughly July of last year, and we're in phase 2 now from my perspective. If we can close back above 98.35 at the end of February, once again, this is a monthly chart, then that neutralizes that outlook, and I'm not going to go there just yet. So let's move on. I left you with this chart here in Bitcoin. We're going to move on to this chart. There is this trend line that I've been showing for the last few weeks across the high that was put out in 21, and again, this high that was put out in 24. We slipped below it just a bit in April of 25, and now we have slipped below it a little bit more this morning. We are presently trading pretty much right at it, 77,708. I'm not crazy about how much we've actually violated this. In fact, I would like to just sort of, if you want to trade this, feel free, but I think the more realistic approach for the week ahead is 70,882. Based on the sell signal, we've got a spike in volatility, so I am going to do you the honor of just eliminating that. This is broad brushstroke analysis. I'm going to say possibly this week, over the next few weeks at the latest, 70,882 is likely. That is a 50% downside retracement from this November, or was it November? November 22 low against the more recent October 25 high, 50% down. I like it because it lines up pretty well with this series of highs that were put out back in March and then again in May of 24. And so this is an area we can bottom out. It's actually pretty obvious. Where is this? This is 68,964, just another 2,000, actually less below that. So if you want to call this one big wide range, I don't have a problem with that. I do think if we close the week below 70,882, and we're expecting more of the same anyway. So let's just kind of jump to the big picture, and that is to say, as I've been mentioning all along, that if we were to close below this 3-year channel bottom at 86,505, and we did so last week, that we can expect the upper 50,000 area. And this is an ultra long-term structure that goes back just about 10 years, December of 17, 9 years anyway, 57,928. I'm going to call this, and I've been mentioning a 2 to 3 month target or sooner, and that sooner may well materialize with Bitcoin. We could see something very similar to, what was this, a October high against the November low. Let's just call this 6 weeks. That is what's possible now. If we close below 70,882, I think that is likely by the end of February. We test 57,928, which I think is a solid long-term bottom-picking zone of support, an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at a much fairer price, and from here we can round up nicely as we continue into later 26 and even into 27. This could be a multi-year low. I also like the upper 50,000s because, where are you? Here we are. Right next to the next chart. There's a rising 2/3 speed line off that November 22 low against this high. These are speed line analysis, also trend defining support levels in the same vicinity, 56,683. So, your 57,000, 58,000 roughly rounding up is your range of support climbing weekly that I think can absorb remnant selling pressures on this move, quite possibly through the rest of the year and maybe even through the rest of the decade. And it is an objective. It is a 2 to 3 month objective below 86,505. And it could be within 2 to 3 weeks of closing this week below 70,882. And that is really it in a nutshell. I'm going to say one more thing, that in the event Bitcoin rallies out of here and closes above 86,505, that only neutralizes the long-term sell signal. It is not yet a buy opportunity, in my opinion. I see that coming clearly with a settlement this week, not going to happen, above 96,924 and descending. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. My apologies. I'm going to have to cut that out. This structure will change for each new low, and it is likely that as we continue, let's just say in the upper 50,000s, it'll have a different angle altogether. It'll be more like this, all right? So will be a little more dynamic. But at this point in time, if we were to rally out of here, if the low so far this week, 74,523 is good, and we happen to close above 86,505, I say a couple things. One, exit a short position if you've established a short position, whatever that may mean to you in Bitcoin. Do you go long? I say no. I think the safe bet is a settlement above this classic descending channel top at the base of a move that would likely pivot us back into the 120s within 2 or 3 months. But until then, this is a weak market. And I will leave you with this image, exactly what we're anticipating over the next 2 to 3 months, 57,928, possibly by the end of February if we close this week below 70,882. That is all I have. Please check out wickedstocks.com. We offer a 2-week free trial. We offer daily NVIDIA, daily Triple Q, daily SPY analysis. We have weekly Apple stock analysis, S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, and of equal importance, maybe greater importance to some of you, are 2 individual stock picks every single week that are of anywhere from small cap to large cap, household names to the not so named, not so commonly named, not so well known. We're always looking for a 20% move at least on the underlying stock. It's very good for the 3 to 5 week to the 3 to 5 month swing trader investor. So check us out at wickedstocks.com. We offer 14 days free. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another weekly Bitcoin update.